What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 21. My name is Victor Vasquez. Thank you so much for coming back and listening. This is going to be, originally, I guess I was going to be reviewing Uncharted. That's what I said on my last episode podcast after I reviewed Death on the Nile. But I had to switch things up because a little movie called The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves, came out on March 3rd. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe I can still squeeze out the Uncharted review. And I thought, nah, let's scrap that. Let's review The Batman. It's already been out for a full-on week. I have seen the movie twice, and I just couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to jump on this podcast. I probably have a little bit more energy and a little bit more excited than I normally am, but you'll find out why. But really, I just kind of wanted to jump in and start talking about this movie and what I thought about it. And again, just answer that final question. Is this movie timeless? For anybody new that's coming into this podcast and they haven't listened to me before, what I like to do is kind of break down movies into different segments about, why I wanted to watch it, what I thought about the overall movie, who was my favorite performance, would I recommend going to the theaters and watching it or streaming it, and then finally, is this movie timeless? Can I sit down and rewatch it multiple times? Obviously, it doesn't have to be in 1 year, but throughout my life, right? Let's say we do live on to live many, many, many years. Would I put this movie on? Would I buy it as a DVD or Blu-ray and put it on from occasion? And so that's really what I try to do and discuss on this podcast. And I'm just ready to go. So let's get things started with that first second and going into why I wanted to watch this movie. Okay, The Batman came out March 3rd, directed by Matt Reeves. We have a new Batman. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have been living under a rock, it is now played by Robert Pattinson. He is the new Bruce Wayne / Batman. And so this film came out with a great trailer during DC Fandom, I believe, last year or a year and a half ago. And I was pumped. It just seemed like a very different take on the Batman. It seemed like it was going to be more of a detective story. And so that was really my first initial reason of why I wanted to watch it, the trailer. I'm pretty sure if you guys have been listening to some of the past episodes and you probably see some of the prior videos that I've done on this specific channel, you would notice that a lot of it is superhero centric. A lot of Marvel movies, a lot of different types of DC movies as well, like Suicide Squad. And so it should come as no surprise that even if it's a superhero movie, you already know that I'm going to be checking it out in theaters. And more importantly, to most folks that might not know this, Batman is my favorite superhero. Before all this Marvel stuff came along, I always enjoyed Batman from the animated series, watching The Mask of the Phantasm, growing up with the Christopher Nolan trilogy, but still watching the Michael Keaton Batman Forever, the Batman and Robin that I don't really watch anymore with George Clooney. But Batman has always been a part of my life, and so any chance I get to watch that character be brought to screen and see a different take, I'm all in. And that trailer that they showed, again, in DC Fandom, just provided a different take on a Batman that was, more rageful. It seemed like it was going to be a more young Batman, and it kind of gives me that vibes of Batman Year One, a comic book that came out a couple of years ago. And again, just a different perspective on what we've already seen. We've seen a Batman that has, obviously the origin story of Christopher Nolan that he gave Batman all the way to Dark Knight Rises when he, almost like fakes his own death. Spoiler if nobody's ever seen The Dark Knight Rises. But again, I just wanted to see a different take on Batman and what kind of stories can they develop or what villains are they going to try to bring in and see what can really click with audiences as well. And so again, those are really all those different types of perspectives of why I wanted to watch this movie. Again, the superhero genre, it's Batman, one of my favorite characters. The trailer had me very hyped. And then lastly, I think as the movie got closer and closer, it was the music. They released the Batman, theme for this film, and it was awesome like that. It just hyped me up so much. The orchestra, the different types of, sounds that they included in it. In my head, I was talking to my brother who also loves Batman. And I was thinking, how are they going to top Hans Zimmer? Hans Zimmer created such a beautiful theme for Batman and the Dark Knight trilogy that I just thought, any Batman film that comes out in the future, I don't know how you can drastically change it to make it sound great or sound memorable. And they did just that in this film. And so that again hyped me up even more. Probably all these things are obvious to a lot of folks that have already listened to me, especially friends and family. They already knew that I was hyped for this movie. But again, just for those that don't know me so well, you now know what are some of the reasons why I wanted to watch this movie. All right, now that I've gone through why I wanted to watch it, let's go ahead and jump into what I thought about the overall movie. I mentioned it a little bit before at the beginning of this episode, but I have now seen this film twice. Once on Friday, March 4th, opening day officially, and then I saw it again on Tuesday in Dolby Cinema. And I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Again, I'm definitely biased. I can at least admit that. Most folks, probably wouldn't call out their biases for specific films or genres, just to try to give a good opinion. I can definitely say that I am heavily biased towards this character, and I just thought it was such an amazing experience. I'm really happy that I got to see it in Dolby Cinema, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the overall movie was just, from beginning to end, the runtime, people were talking about it's the longest Batman movie of all of them, and how would it all kind of connect together? How would they differentiate it? But Matt Reeves and the rest of the team, the writers, producers, did such an incredible job to, again, show more of the detective side of Batman. Now, is he the world's greatest detective in this specific film? Probably not. I do want to call out again, I should have said this at the beginning, there's going to be spoilers in this review. I think that's why I wanted to wait a week, just to kind of give folks time to watch this movie. And if you haven't already, again, please go out and watch it. Just spoiler warning from here on out, because I will be spoiling a lot of different aspects of this film. But really, I can't really go into it without giving some type of details. So if you haven't seen the movie, please go out and watch it. All right, that's enough for the spoiler warning. It's barely year 2 for Batman as soon as this film starts. So he is basically almost journaling in a diary all the specific nights that he's gone in. He actually calls it the Gotham Project. And so that's really how he tries to explain to the audience as he's narrating at the beginning of the film of what he's trying to do and how he is really the shadows and the fear that gets put into a lot of villains and thugs throughout Gotham. And he again explains, like every other Batman, how corrupt and how much of a dangerous place Gotham really is. Can I say, though, before I kind of jump into any further detail, one of my favorite aspects of this film was the narration at the beginning and end of this film. So Robert Pattinson, again, he is now the new Bruce Wayne Batman. He narrates the beginning, again, explaining what day it is. He explains that really the movie starts off with on October 31st, Halloween. And, and then he kind of just explains really what that bat signal means. It's apparently the first couple of days or weeks that they have used this specific bat signal between Jim Gordon and Batman. And so he's explaining how, again, with that specific symbol now it's actually putting the fear into a lot of thugs and villains. Now it kind of makes him second guess what they should be doing. Do they really want to rob this liquor store? Do they really want to beat up this specific civilian? As soon as you see that light, now you know, okay, is he in the shadows? Is he watching me? Is Batman lurking somewhere trying to take me out? And so that was just so awesome that Robert Pattinson kind of did that voiceover and narration at the beginning. And then in the end of the film, he does the exact same thing, explaining, again, the hope that he tries to provide to Gotham. But it's just, again, those different ideas. That's really what are some of the best options that, even for a superhero genre where you're rebooting different heroes over and over and over again, you don't really want to do the same stuff and have it be like a broken record. Rather, you should have to try to pinpoint different ideas and concepts that really make it drastically different from every other movie. And I don't think, just from watching all the previous Batman films, again, I haven't seen them in a while. The closest being maybe like 2 years ago when the pandemic happened, I rewatched really the entire Nolan trilogy. And I don't believe Batman ever narrates himself. Maybe a few scenes here and there, but there's never been a true narration, as if we're looking at like a comic from a Batman comic, really. Him narrating and talking to himself and kind of explaining what he's doing. And again, that just seems so cool as well. As I mentioned before, Matt Reeves and the entire team that created the film did such an awesome job to make this story like a crime mystery film where Batman and Jim Gordon really are the dynamic duo working to try to solve a specific riddle that, as you could guess it, the Riddler is setting up for them. So the Riddler is out here taking out these specific individuals that are very important to Gotham. Some of them are the commissioner of Gotham for the police department. One of them is the DA for Gotham. Another one is the mayor. And so he's taking out, the Riddler is, all of these individuals, but every one of those is part of a plan. He's leaving riddles for Batman so that he can find them, and that way they can kind of be on the same page when it comes to why he is doing these types of assassinations and murders throughout Gotham as well. And so it was just, again, something completely off the cuff of what we've normally seen from Batman. We've typically seen him kind of use a little bit of detective work, a lot of gadgets, and it's a little bit on the action side as well. But here it was a little bit different, where now it's like him trying to investigate and figure out a murder, or figure out multiple murders, and kind of go down the path of, why is the Riddler doing this? How come it's doing this? What is his purpose? And at the end of the movie, we find out again why he wanted all of this orchestrated, with Batman knowing every single step of the way. So again, it's just beautiful. I thought it was just amazing. It's just the way that you're kind of taken as an audience member, kind of step by step, and you're figuring out the clues, and you're trying to understand, okay, is he trying to get Batman's attention? Does he want Batman's help? What specifically does he have an interest in Batman? Does he want to know his identity, or what other purpose does the Riddler have? And so now I kind of want to jump into the Riddler character. Paul Dano played the Riddler, and he just did a great job. You don't see his face, really, the Riddler's face, until probably close to the beginning of the third act of the film. Most of the time, he's kind of just saran wrapped. He's kind of taped his whole entire face, and he kind of has this very scary demeanor where he screams and yells in this kind of voice, and it sets the tone for how we typically have seen the Riddler in either an animated series or in, Batman Forever, where it was played by Jim Carrey. It was very comical and very funny. And this one was not that at all. He was just very straight to the point, and you can see he was disturbed. He was a psychopath. And I even believe in interviews, Matt Reeves has explained that the Riddler was almost like a Zodiac killer. He would leave these very strange clues, a lot of different types of his own alphabet that he's been creating, so that the Batman and Jim Gordon can kind of figure out and solve this specific mystery. How Paul Dano portrayed it was awesome. And then finally, when they show his face, he just seems like a very young kid that's just disturbed. He didn't get his ways, and he's upset, and he throws tantrums when he's in his jail cell. It's just very, very contrast to what we saw at the beginning of the film as the Riddler. Very serious, and you kind of take him seriously, that you get anxious almost of what he's going to do next. But it was just a great performance by Paul Dano. I'll probably talk about that a little bit more in the next segments of my favorite performance. But really, overall, the story just kind of takes place in Gotham, in that kind of gritty place of like crime and the underworld, really. You get to see Oswald Cobblepot, played by Colin Farrell. You get to see Carmine Falcone. You get to see all these familiar names that you've seen in the Batman lore. And it was just, again, a great job to kind of portray the city of Gotham as its own character as well. It's always raining. It always feels very muggy and nasty. And now, Christopher Nolan did a great job portraying Gotham in Batman Begins as well. But I just feel like in this film, it just had its own kind of energy, the city did. And it's just, again, it just makes itself its own character. And I think that when you're able to make a city its own character and has its own vibe, it just makes that experience of Batman going through it even more appealing as well. Again, I don't want to go into too much detail about the entire story. I want people to experience it, even though I did say I was going to spoil a lot of things. I was really intrigued by how the story played out. You're trying to see how all these riddles connect, why the Riddler wants to take out all of these public figures like the commissioner, the mayor, and the DA, and then all the way up to the end where, basically Batman has to try to save the city in any way that he can. One of the other aspects that I really enjoyed was that not only was this only year 2 for Batman, but he also, wasn't really liked or appreciated in Gotham. Nobody at the police station, at the GCPD, besides Jim Gordon, wanted him there at crime scenes. Nobody wanted his help. Nobody appreciated him being there, and I love that. I love that kind of a specific aspect where it's early on in Batman's career, and people are still doubting him like that. You're a vigilante. Why are you not letting the law take things? And we obviously find out that there's corruption all over the GCPD, but it's just that different aspect where nobody really wants the Batman. We don't need his help, and then him just trying to do his best to show with his actions why he can provide the ultimate solution to Gotham, and that's basically finding these thugs and putting the fear of God in them. And again, it's just that different type of perspective that I really appreciated Matt Reeves and the direction he took for this film. Can I say now, the outfit that Robert Pattinson was wearing as Batman was amazing. It reminded me of, if anybody's ever played Arkham Origins, there's a video game that came out for the PS4, Xbox. He had a kind of like a bulky suit in that game where it's just like all armor. And again, same kind of concept. It was very early on in Batman's career, so he tried to protect himself at all costs for any gunshots and knives. And so Robert Pattinson kind of wore a very similar suit where it's very armored up. And can I say that one of my another favorite aspect of mine of this film was every time you would hear Batman walk, either in the rain or coming up in a crime scene, you could just hear his boots, and you could just hear that armor kind of just hitting every single step. You could feel the force that he was kind of trying to portray as that Batman character. That again, he's something that you should not be messing with. And I just thought that, again, that kind of aspect, showing off the sound of his boots and then being able to show this armor off and how it's been able to protect him, taking gunshots almost direct on point at his chest, and him just surviving. It obviously hurts. There's different scenes where he kind of just gets knocked out by shotguns and different items like that, but that suit was just amazing. It grew on me. I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's not as sleek as the Dark Knight trilogy costume, but my goodness, after watching it 2 times, it's just starting to become one of my favorite ones, just because of how real life it could be, how you would want a suit that can protect you from different weapons that thugs might have. And so just awesome details that they added to that bat suit as well. Can I also say that they definitely try to differentiate the gadgets that Batman used. That's another aspect that I started thinking about as I started watching this film, is how can they try to differentiate between all the different gadgets that, the Batman from Michael Keaton's era to the Dark Knight trilogy, and they still surprise me. In this film, spoilers again, Batman has these almost contact lenses that allow him to, pinpoint and record different interactions that he has throughout his different, interactions with the GCPD and crime scenes. And so he can rewatch those moments and understand, okay, who was this person? Identify and almost ID who the DA was, who the commissioner was, who these police officers was. And I thought that was so awesome. Again, reminding me back to the Arkham games, you had this mode called detective mode, where you would kind of go into it, and now you can see kind of extra details that you would normally see, with the naked eye as well. Other thing was, he had this bodysuit that he would use to kind of fly off the building. And so typically we've always seen Batman just kind of jump off and use his cape to kind of help him glide. But in this film, Matt Reeves and the team kind of made it very realistic where, obviously his cape is not going to be able to kind of help him glide and fly across Gotham. But what if his cape and his suit turned into a bodysuit? And now it looks like one of those guys that jumps off, cliffs and kind of skydives on a bodysuit parachute. And it just looks so realistic. It made you, again, it makes me kind of feel like, man, this could definitely be possible. Again, so many different aspects that are outside of the box that I just truly enjoyed as well. All right, that's really what I want to talk about with the overall film. Again, it's a very great murder mystery kind of crime story where Batman and Jim Gordon are working together to try to find out who the Riddler is and what his plans were. Just a great ending that occurred as well, where by the end of it, really everybody now sees Batman as a beacon of hope. And that's really what he is. Again, he's the symbol. It's not really the bat signal that should show the fear to thugs, but that signal should also show to Gotham that, yes, we have a protector. We have somebody that is on our side that will take us out of this darkness and into the light as well. And so it's just, to me, it was a beautiful, beautiful story, and I enjoyed it all the way through. I would not be surprised if I watch this film again. I'm probably spoiling what I'm going to be saying at the last segment, but I definitely recommend everybody go out and watch The Batman. It just has such a great story, and it has a little bit of everything. The action is so seamless. I can definitely say that, I guess, before I move on. The action in this film is some of the most sleek, most smooth action that I've seen in a Batman movie. Typically, I think that's one of the cons of the Christopher Nolan films. He was, how it was filmed and how it was kind of directed was very kind of choppy. You couldn't really see it very clearly. And I get that maybe you would want Batman to be very, whoa, how fast he is, or you can't see him because of how quick and how agile he might be. But how they filmed the bat scenes and the bat action scenes here, but how they filmed the Batman action scenes here was just beautiful. They showed Robert Pattinson all the way through. Great choreography. No cutting of scenes. Everything was just one entire shot. It was beautiful. I loved it. But I'll go ahead and stop there so that we can move on to the next segment, which is what was my favorite performance. All right. My favorite performance is going to be a cop-out because I enjoyed multiple different performances and I can't really just pinpoint one. So let's just kind of roll them off right here. I want to start off with Zoe Kravitz playing Catwoman. She did a great job. I think it took me the second time to watch the film to appreciate her performance more. And the reason is just because when I watched the first time, my eyes and my focus is on Batman, Robert Pattinson. How is he going to play it? What is his voice going to sound like? How does his Bruce Wayne going to act? And, a lot of that attention went to Robert Pattinson in the first viewing. Second viewing, it gave me a little bit more flexibility in that I can now focus on other characters like Jim Gordon or, again, Catwoman, Selena Kyle. And I thought, again, Zoe Kravitz did a great job as Selena Kyle. She had this very confident demeanor where she didn't really need Batman to find her answers. She was trying to find her own specific reason to, again, understand what was going on. Why did she get one of her friends taken away from her? Where is she? And so, again, she probably liked the interactions, Selena Kyle, again, the character, liked the interactions with Batman, but she definitely did not need Batman to get what she wanted. If she needed to interrogate a thug, if she needed to find specific money to carry on with her, specific items or game plan that she was working on, she could do that all on her own. And one of my favorite things was I enjoyed her fighting style. Again, all of this stuff is just reminding me of the Arkham games, and I think that's the reason why I loved it so much. Is her fighting style was again very quick, very agile, just like you would expect a cat would be, jumping up on different items in a house or on a fence. Just very, very quick and agile. And I thought that was so cool. She would have a quick fighting scene with Batman, and she would just kind of throw these spinning heel kicks and spinning back kicks, and it just looked so smooth. And I really enjoyed that kind of an aspect for Catwoman. As for Selena Kyle, Zoe Kravitz did a great job to kind of show that emotion back and forth. You find out through a revelation that she is actually the daughter of Carmine Falcone, one of the underworld criminal bosses of Gotham that's running Gotham really under everybody's nose. And, you could see how much she is in pain, that she really just wants to murder this man. But she also has that connection that he is my father. And so, have that conflict of interest is just so awesome to see. And Zoe Kravitz did a great job to portray that emotion on her face as well. My second favorite performance, it has to be Jeffrey Wright, Jim Gordon. He was, as compared to Gary Oldman, who played Jim Gordon in the Dark Knight trilogy, in this one, Jeffrey Wright gave Gordon a little bit more confidence, whereas, Jim Gordon, he right off the bat, he was really the only partner and person that Batman could trust. He immediately felt that Batman could make a difference in Gotham, but he wanted to make it work as a team. He wanted Batman to be really a part of that GCPD and see, okay, if we can work together and if we can be on the same page, good things can at least come out of this relationship and in order to fix Gotham. And so how Jeffrey Wright really played Jim Gordon was awesome. Again, he was very serious. He had his one-liner jokes again that just made the film not be too serious, and it had its funny moments. And again, Jeffrey Wright did a great job as well. Not trying to compare to Gary Oldman and his Jim Gordon. Again, just very different in those perspectives. But you could also see that Jeffrey Wright, again, was really more on a detective side as well. He wanted to really understand and go through what were the reasonings behind the Riddler. Why was he wanting to do this? And so it made it seem like it wasn't really Batman being the world's greatest detective. It was really Jim Gordon and Batman together trying to be the world's greatest detectives. Both of them on, each other's sides and trusting each other in order to go, scene by scene and moment by moment and try to get to that end game of what is the Riddler's goal? What is he trying to do? And, Jeffrey Wright accomplished that very, very well. All right, last but not least, I have to commend Robert Pattinson for his Batman. I didn't mention this in the first segment, but I actually appreciated that majority of this movie, Robert Pattinson is, I believe, I've seen it twice. I might have to see it again to kind of confirm, but I feel like I see him more as Batman than he comes out as Bruce Wayne. Whereas in other films, it might be a 50-50 split, right? You might see 50% Bruce Wayne throughout the movie and then 50% Batman. Maybe sometimes more Bruce Wayne than Batman. But in this film, I actually appreciated that we got to see Batman more than Bruce Wayne. We've seen Bruce Wayne in different iterations, again, different types of perspectives. In this one, Robert Pattinson played him still as a very young man, and you could see that he's still dealing with the loss of his parents and trying to understand where is his place in the world, almost to the fact that he doesn't even really want to be Bruce Wayne anymore. He tells Alfred in one scene that, I don't care what happens to me as Bruce Wayne. All I care about is that if I can do anything to save this city. So at this point, he already knows that Batman is his true identity. Batman is who he wants to be in order to provide that hope to Gotham. Even though at the beginning of the film, nobody has any hope in Batman. Nobody wants to have that hope. They just think he's just a crazy vigilante out hurting people as well. But Robert Pattinson did an awesome job. I really loved his voice as the Batman. There wasn't a big difference between his Bruce Wayne voice and his Batman voice, which again, to me, I always appreciated Christian Bale's Batman voice. Everybody hates on it. Not me. I thought that was genius. Why would you want to have the same voice as Bruce Wayne and Batman? People would figure it out. So it's just those kind of things. But he did it deep enough where you couldn't really distinguish it that much, but I still enjoyed it. He just had a great kind of tone. And whenever he was talking to Selina or when he was talking to Jim Gordon, it just made it feel like he was very confident and he knew that he was exactly where he needed to be, and he knew anything that he would say had to be heard by anybody that was in the room. So it was just a great job. And again, the fighting scenes. So Robert Pattinson, if he did that choreography or if he had a stunt double, great job, because they just made it seem so smooth and seamless. It just made me feel like, yes, this is the Batman that we've been looking for, right? Like the one that can cause hurt and that can just really damage thugs and show them like, hey, this is what happens when you go out at night. This is what happens when you try to steal things or rob things. Like, this is how I'm going to leave you. This is the state that you're going to be in. You're going to be in pain. And so just, again, an awesome performance. You could see the rage in Robert Pattinson's voice whenever he kind of screamed and was, again, in a lot of different moments of the film, whether it was in a prison cell with he wasn't in the prison cell, but he was face to face with Riddler in his prison cell, or when he was in his Batmobile, kind of screaming in pain after some type of moment happened that I'm not going to spoil. But again, it's just great performances, a lot of emotion from all three of these actors, and again, it just made me enjoy the entire film experience even more. All right, that was my favorite performance. Again, kind of cheated. I said 3 different names. But now I want to jump into my favorite moment, and I'm going to cheat again. I can't help it, guys. There was just too many moments that were incredible. So I'll just kind of start naming it off. One of the first ones that comes into my mind was you could see it in the trailer, but it's where he first introduces himself, where he basically beats up these thugs that kind of have these face paint on them. and he just kind of breaks this guy's arm, punches him, knocks him out, and then he throws 2 extra punches after he's knocked down on the floor, and he just says the classic line, "I'm vengeance." And it's just, oh man, it's just such a great line. I kind of, I'll be honest, I wish that I hadn't seen the trailer just so I could see that in the theater, and I would have been blown away. That would have been my favorite scene. But since I knew it was coming, it was like, you know what? It was still cool, but not my favorite moment. One of my other great moments of the film was there was a scene where they are it's not Madison Square Garden in this universe. It's actually called Gotham Square Garden. But Batman makes a beautiful entrance where he basically just starts, kind of comes through the ceiling of the Gotham Square Garden after he kind of implodes the glass ceiling. And he kind of just comes down with his cape kind of flowing, comes down, ends up knocking out almost 10 or 12 different Riddler thugs that were working with him as his followers. And it was just an amazing scene where, again, he just kind of comes down, starts going into all these different types of choreography and action scenes, and he just starts knocking out these fools. And then in one specific part of it, he's knocked out. He got shotgunned really to the chest, and so he looks like he can't get up. And then all of a sudden, he pulls out this little green vial. He injects himself with some type of adrenaline, and then he just gets up and he starts wrecking this dude, punching him on the ground, and he just completely swells up his face for how much he was punching him, that Jim Gordon had to kind of separate him because of how much rage he had from that adrenaline rush. It was just an amazing ending sequence, a fighting sequence really, in that third act. Was just beautiful. Another one that I can think of is when they had the car chase scene between Batman and Oswald Cobblepot. And it was, oh man, how they shot that was just so good. And it was a long chase scene between the two characters. But the way they mounted a camera on the sides of each one of it was the Batmobile, and then also they mounted a couple cameras on Oswald's car. And it, just throughout it was raining, it was on a highway, and then you could just see that scene where, and it came out in the trailers, you just see Batman kind of flip Oswald's car, and just does a couple of flips, and then from an upside down perspective you could just see the Batman walking towards Oswald, and then you could just hear the boots again in the rain, and it's just with that perfect score of the Batman. It was everything that you would want to see in a specific Batman scene. So awesome, and I'm glad that I got to see that all the way through in the specific theaters, and I got to see it in Dolby, which made it even more of an awesome experience because my seat was shaking. The surround sound made it seem like the car chase scene was just going all around us. Man, I can't. It's one of those experiences that I just kind of want to experience over and over again. Other kind of scene that I try to think of as well is there's one part of the film where Batman is in the GCPD, and it's almost at the breaking point for the GCPD where they don't trust him anymore. They don't know what's going on. Why is the Riddler killing him? Is Batman involved? And Jim Gordon has to convince, the GCPD that he can handle Batman. And so he kicks everybody out, and he tells Batman specifically under his breath that he has to basically escape from here, because if he doesn't escape, then the GCPD will just arrest him. And so what he tells Batman is he says, you have to really punch me. That way everybody thinks that you're against us. And so Batman ends up punching Jim Gordon, and then he ends up running away from the GCPD and ends up going to the top of the building. And that's where he kind of takes off with his bodysuit. But just that whole scene throughout was just hilarious, because it seems like Jim Gordon really is gonna, at a point where he doesn't trust Batman. And then he kind of just flips it and says, none of these guys believe you, so like, you got to trust me. You have to leave. And so Batman says, how am I supposed to do that? And that's where Jim says, you're going to punch me. And he's like, and you're going to leave on this door, exit to the left. And so how that whole scene played out, that was just hilarious to me. It was just a great moment to kind of see Batman running for the GCPD and using, again, his grappling hook, using his bodysuit to escape, and just showing the relationship already early on in year 2 between Jim Gordon and Batman is just, again, another great aspect of this film. So those, again, were just some of my favorite moments throughout the Batman. Again, you guys, I want to hear from you. What did you think about the movie? What were your favorite scenes? Go ahead and put those down below, and I'd love to interact and see what your guys' favorite moments from the Batman were. All right, guys. Now I want to jump into the fourth segment, which is, would I recommend you guys watch this in the movie theaters, or would I recommend you guys wait for it in streaming? 100%, I definitely recommend you guys should go out and watch it in theaters. This movie definitely lends itself to hearing it from surround sounding and seeing it on a big screen. There's a lot of different, again, scenes and moments where I haven't explained just yet that, again, it makes it feel much more grand and epic when you watch it on a big screen. If you can, I definitely recommend to go to a Dolby Cinema or IMAX. That way you can, again, get all of that flavor, all of the specific scenes and colors that are portrayed in the film. I didn't explain this earlier, but another one of my favorite aspects of the film is the color that they would use to kind of blend off of Batman's suit. He would turn on a flare, and that bright red would kind of glare off of his Batman suit. When he would be around the police and the GCPD, you could see the siren colors, blue and red, bouncing off of his Batman suit. At the end, after he had gone through a specific, saving of the city, really, his entire suit is kind of covered in mud and water and dirty. It's all disgusting, really, but his Batman suit now kind of doesn't look all black. Now it's kind of all gray with all the filth and grime of Gotham City. And just the coloring of that, you could just kind of see it. And in Dolby, it just kind of was heightened to another level as well. So if you have the chance, I know it's expensive to go to the theaters, and especially if you go see a Dolby and AMC IMAX ticket is very expensive. But if you can, just go ahead and check it out in movie theaters. Don't wait. This film is just amazing. I definitely recommend everybody go out to the theaters and watch it as well. All right, everybody, here we are at the last segment. And the last question really is this film, The Batman, timeless? I'm pretty sure you can, you guys being a detective and listening to this podcast, you can probably deduce that I really love this movie. It is a timeless movie for me. I've already seen it twice. I would not be surprised if I see it again when it comes out on HBO Max. If it ever does, very soon, I will be watching it. But this film just has everything. It has great fighting scenes. It has great scenes where you're just kind of discussing between two characters, whether it's Selena Kyle and Robert Pattinson, or if it's Jeffrey Wright's Jim Gordon and Batman and Robert Pattinson. Just so many different aspects of this film that it just makes it worthwhile. It has everything. It has that mystery aspect where you as an audience member are trying to understand, okay, why is the Riddler doing this? What's his goal? Like, why is he writing letters to Batman? And, all the way to you find out kind of the truth behind not only, what Riddler is doing, but, again, the connection that it has with Thomas and Martha Wayne, all of this different stuff. And it just excites me more, not only to watch it again, but also it excites me for the future. It excites me because now I'm looking forward to what Matt Reeves can do for the second film. And I'm hoping and I'm praying that we get another Batman film, because this one was just so awesome and so cool in different aspects. And it's so different from the other Batman films as well. People are already starting to compare which one's better, The Dark Knight or this one. And, as much as fun as it is to kind of debate and kind of determine, okay, which one is the better film, let's just appreciate how great they all are, and just kind of show again, hey, man, this film was amazing. This film was incredible. And obviously, it's always going to be tough, and we'll probably have to make that debate later on as years go by. But let's just enjoy how good the Batman was. Great job by Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Jeffrey Wright, everybody else that played a part in this film. You guys did amazing. You made me even big. I'm already a huge fan of the Batman. You made me an even bigger fan. And I'm definitely going to try to watch this film one more time. So once again, this is a timeless movie for me. But more importantly, guys, what do you think? Have you seen the Batman? If not, what is wrong with you? Go out and see it. And if you have, let me know down below. Is this a movie that you would definitely play again on, in your living room? Would you go out and rent it? Would you see it in theaters again? Let me know your thoughts. I want to hear from you guys. Go ahead and place those comments down below. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. This has probably been one of the longest episodes that I've ever done on the Timeless Movie Podcast. But I just had to. It just, again, I'm very biased towards this character and towards the superhero genre, but I feel like I had to let it all out. So if I spoiled anything, I apologize. I did give spoilers ahead of time, so just kind of giving you that. But once again, my name has been Victor Vasquez. This has been episode 21 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Thank you so much, everybody, for staying and listening. I will catch you next week for the next episode that we're going to be covering on a new film that I am not quite sure just yet about. But stay tuned, guys, and you'll be hearing from me once again. All right, guys, take care.